Well, you know how most golfers want to swing the club really orthodox and get that club in that perfect position at the top of the backswing. Today we're going to discuss whether that is needed. We're going to talk about the cross line position, which is a position I quite often get into myself, and we'll talk about how you can have a relevant matchup to make that work and why you might want to change that cross line position to make it more orthodox, to make things a bit easier for you so you don't have to rely so much on timing to get the desired outcomes you want and hit loads of fairways and hit loads of greens. So make that all easier for you and reduce the kind of inconsistent wrist action that has to correspond with that, and the body movements have to correspond with that to make it work. So I'm going to share with you today a story about a golfer called Ian, who came to see me, that has a very cross line position at the top and a very reduced turn pattern. So that particular golfer in this case doesn't have the relevant matchup to make things work. So his downswing would start down very, very steeply, very much over the top as we class it, and then his body would stand up into early extension, his wrists arch to get the club back into a more orthodox position at contact, which makes him really inconsistent. So what we did with Ian is worked on getting the club more in the better position by turning more and getting his arm shape better, so that he had then time and space to rotate onto the golf ball more naturally through the ball, and he hit the ball massively better. His path numbers increased in consistency to produce better outcomes and better shots and lower his scores, and he was chuffed with the results, needless to say. So let's get stuck into the content, the matchups, and how we can change the position at the top if that's what you need to do. So what we're looking at today really is the shaft position and how that's controlled at the top of the backswing. So we'd quite often refer to it, let's call it as parallel to, or fairly orthodox looking, cross line and laid off. Now when I'm demonstrating these positions, I can't see exactly how the club looks, but if we imagine the club being pretty much parallel with that blue stick on the ground, that'd be pretty good, whether it was more up in the air with less wrist action or more radial action, so it sits a bit more this way, so more parallel to the ground. If we had it so it was cross-lined or laid off. Those are the positions we're looking at. Now the guys that cross-line, and I've been one of these sufferers for all my golfing career, the guys that cross-line, unless they have a huge turn like a Matthew Wolff, who cross-lines with a big turn, it is very difficult to get the golf club deep enough and shallow enough as we start down, to then turn onto the golf ball. So Matthew Wolff is a perfect example of this. He has a huge turn and a cross-line position, but because he has this huge turn, the club and hands, or the handle of the club, is in a deeper position at the top relative to what we were talking about if you had less turn. And because of that, then as he unwinds, he can shallow that club. Now the guys that cross line with no turn, as the torso starts to turn back towards target, it drags the handle out here in front. So we end up then getting that horrible steep looking downswing, which will plague 90% of the golfers out there. So the two things I want to talk about really today is how we can get the arm to what we call pronate more, and how we can make sure we turn correctly to allow us to match up even if we can't get it perfect at the top. So if we quite simply take a rod, hold it down the club like so, make a backswing, and I want to feel like we have a lot of hip turn and stomach turn and rib cage turn. To do this, and I want to feel like this rod points up in the sky, towards the ground, up into the sky. Now, the more I point it up to the sky, the more I pronate this lead arm, and basically make this trail arm go into more an external shape. And what that does is get that club more laid off. So if you're a cross liner, it's going to sort of sit like that, down to the ground and working behind us. So working more out in front of you, as we would say it, and pointing more in the air is the feel we want with that. And matching it up with a bigger kind of hip turn, body turn, as opposed to being underturned or false turned and having the club in this kind of shape. That really would be the death move for me. Because if you have both those things, it makes it very difficult to hit long clubs and drivers particularly. You get far too steep, hit far too much down on the ball, unless you get the recovery position, which I see with a lot of golfers. And that recovery position, what it does, presents the handle very, very high, and it's very hard to square the face up. If If you do square the face up, it's normally with a very flippy action. Now the laid off look, you can also get problems with the club doing this on the way down because the right hand gets very dominant. So the laid off look is just as bad. So we want to make sure we get the club more online. If we are going to cross line big turn, if it's laid off, we've got to try and feel that we get the feeling of the handle coming out more as we start down and the right wrist setting back more into this extension shape as we start down. That would be paramount for me. Those two things make a huge difference to controlling the shaft as it comes down. At the end of the day, the backswing doesn't really matter. We don't hit the ball with a backswing. So if we compensate in the way down in a consistent manner, we can play great golf. There's lots of golfers out there that cross the line or lay the club off that are successful, hugely successful, powerful players that play great golf and win lots of tournaments. I'm not saying there's only one way. I'm saying we have to make sure we have the relevant matchups to make sure that you can control what you're doing to make you consistent and make you a better golfer. If you cross the line and hit dead straight shots, don't change it. So once you've done some practice swings using the cane to get the feeling of changing the arm shape at the top of the swing or in the last third of the backswing, take a tee, put it in the end of the club and use that as a visuals the same way as you use the cane. So again, when I'm swinging back, try and feel I'm pointing that up in the air. Down in the ground, up in the air. So up in the air would be generally the way I'd want to feel it because I want to get rid of my cross line look. And that allows me then to move the shaft in a much better shape at the start of the downswing. My own tendency is I tend to get a little cross line and I tend to get a little bit too steep in that start downswing. And then I recover, but I recover a little bit with then a lack of rotation, a bit of a stall on my body, which I don't want. It makes me a little bit flippy with my hands, which is definitely a feel I hate in my golf swing. So take your step to a golf ball, use the tee peg, have a rehearsal again, and then we're going to go and hit it. We're going to try and give it a big turn as well. So definitely felt different to normal. Again, as I said, I normally suffer with the cross line look. I have to really focus hard not to make a cross line. The benefits are for me the easiness in the transition and the club on the way down and how that automatically gets my body working. Those are the benefits for me to want to make that change. If you're going to make a change, it has to be for a reason, not just to look better. It has to give you a positive outcome for me. So doing this drill would slowly start to make the change in my swing happen more naturally. And then I might have that one conscious thought on the golf course to point the tee peg or point the butt of the club. That might be the one conscious thing, or it might even be just make sure I have that good quality big turn to help match up even if I do cross line. But one of those two thoughts I take to the course and I play better golf straight away. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'm just curious to know if you did or didn't, so please post down below if you enjoyed it and it's going to make a difference to your game. I'd also welcome your feedback and comments and requests for videos for the future. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit my logo down in the bottom corner. I'd love to have you on my channel. I'd love to help you with your golf, and I'd love to help you as I help every other golfer that I see on a one-to-one basis. So, thanks for joining me today. See you again here very soon.